E3 is that magical time of year for Nintendo fans, full of tons of amazing announcements, big reveals, fantastic booths, and most importantly, super awkward stage moments.
Looks like we're having a little interference here.
E3 has been around for a while, starting all the way back in 1995 and going all the way to 2019. But in 2020, the event was cancelled for the first time due to the global pandemic, and although it briefly returned last year with an all-digital event, once again it was cancelled for this year. They're saying that the show will return next year, but in a lot of ways it feels like the classic E3 we all know and love is a thing of the past. I'm sure we'll still get summers full of awesome video game announcements, but the future of E3 itself is pretty uncertain at the moment. So today I thought I'd take a look back at all of Nintendo's E3 shows and rank them from worst to best. I'll be ranking these presentations based on a mix of my own personal opinions and the general reception, but I'm not going to lie and say that my rankings are totally objective. This is still very much all just my opinion, and I'm sure you would rank things differently yourself. Honestly, I'll probably change my own opinions in a couple weeks. It's really hard to rank all of these. I was constantly going back and forth on my placements. Remember that this video is just supposed to be for fun. I'll mostly be looking at the actual announcements and overall entertainment value, and not really focusing on the physical E3 booths themselves to keep things more simple. Nintendo has had a presence at every E3 since the very beginning, so there's a lot of content to go over. So I'm going to go through these pretty quickly so we aren't here all day. It'll just be a brief recap of each year and not super in-depth. It was really great to have an excuse to go back and watch all of Nintendo's old E3 shows. I hadn't seen most of them, and rewatching them with today's perspective was a lot of fun. But honestly, I did skip around a little bit here and there because some of the shows can get pretty boring. I binge-watched all of the shows in one day, which probably wasn't smart because a lot of it blended together in my mind. And since I didn't want to take detailed notes while watching like it was a homework assignment, I'll be getting some information from this helpful IGN E3 guide that covers the major games and announcements of each year. So if any of my information is wrong, don't blame me, blame IGN. And with all of that out of the way, we can jump into my personal ranking of all of Nintendo's past E3 showcases. There isn't much to talk about with Nintendo's E3 in 1995. The only major things that happened were delaying their next console, codenamed the Ultra 64, and revealing the Virtual Boy. There were some cool games like Donkey Kong Country 2 and Earthbound, but most of the press conference consisted of this dude complaining about counterfeit video games for like 20 minutes. Super boring stuff. Nintendo's E3 show in 2008 has become infamous for its horribly awkward and cringy stage moments. From Shaun White pretending to enjoy his own game while forcing out some fake laughs, to the insanely bad Wii Music performance that ended the show. Cammie Dunaway was the main host of this show, and I'm sure she's a super nice person, but she sadly created a lot of awkward moments of silence for the audience watching.
See how your okay, let's go, girl. Let me do a little line it up. I was never very good at this, and
Wii Sports Resort was probably the biggest announcement of the show, but they didn't exactly do a great job at showing the game off. Even though Resort is one of my favorite games of all time, even I can admit that the gameplay demo looked pretty rough and was super awkward. Animal Crossing City Folk was a decent announcement, but it looked very similar to Wild World. And of course there's the biggest and most important game of the decade, Wii Music. (2003) is another famously boring E3 for Nintendo, full of lots of business slideshows, gimmicky Game Boy Advance support with the GameCube, and a focus on Pac-Man Vs. means this show wasn't very good. This is actually where the famous meme image started, as the people in the audience were not very happy during this E3. I feel a little bad putting 2015 this low on the list, as the puppet skits in between announcements are really great. But the big games include Star Fox Zero, Triforce Heroes, Metroid Prime Federation Force, Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival, and Mario Tennis Ultra Smash. Now if you're unfamiliar with those games, that might sound like a good lineup, but all of those games are considered massive disappointments by Nintendo fans, with some even calling it the dark age of Nintendo. (1998) gave us a much better look at Ocarina of Time, one of the most exciting upcoming game releases, along with some Game Boy stuff, including Pokemon, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Printer, and Game Boy Camera. There wasn't very much to this E3, as there weren't really any big exciting game announcements. The reason it's this low is because I keep forgetting what even happened this year. 2007 was just after the Wii launched, so Nintendo was enjoying super high sales and the Wii Sports craze. Mario Kart Wii showed up, which was really cool, but this year's E3 was full of gimmicky plastic accessories like the Wii Zapper and the Wii Wheel. And to end the presentation was the reveal of the Wii Balance Board and Wii Fit, which confused people at first but ended up being a huge success. Honestly, I think Nintendo got a little too comfortable this year with their success and didn't try hard enough to impress people. But luckily there was at least the origin of Reggie's iconic line.
My body is ready.
Now we're getting into the years that are just kind of okay. Not horrible, but not super memorable either. 2000 was the very end of the N64 and Game Boy's lifespans, so everyone was eager to get a look at the future of Nintendo. But they didn't show anything of their next generation consoles. Instead, they focused on N64 games. There were some solid games like Mario Tennis, Majora's Mask, and Paper Mario, but in the context of the time, this E3 was pretty mediocre. Okay, this is where my own personal bias is really going to start showing. Nintendo's approach to E3 2016 was very different. Instead of having lots of different announcements, they would just be focusing on one game. That sounds pretty bad, but that one game just happened to be one of my favorite games of all time, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. So while it's probably an objectively weak E3, I still really enjoyed it since I'm such a big Zelda fan. Finally seeing the new Zelda was magical, and it was all I needed at the time. But I can't put this year any higher since it was so limited in what it showed. I think the reason this year was so small is because Nintendo was focusing on the Switch behind the scenes.
Here we go.
1999 was the first time we heard about what would eventually become the GameCube, then codenamed Dolphin. But strangely, they promised DVD player support, which totally didn't happen. Some of the N64 games showcased included Donkey Kong 64, Kirby 64, Mario Golf, Pokemon Snap, and Super Smash Bros. Some pretty good games there, but the quick glimpse at the future of Nintendo was pretty vague. E3 in 1997 gave us the first good look at Ocarina of Time, the exciting next step for the Legend of Zelda series. Mario had already made the jump to 3D and it was revolutionary. Finally, it was time for Link to make the same leap. There was also F-Zero X and Banjo-Kazooie, but other than that, things were pretty quiet. A good couple games, but not enough to get it any higher on the list. It's actually pretty hard to research these older E3s, as there's not a whole lot of coverage. The main purpose of Nintendo's E3 show in 2012 was to sell the idea of the Wii U to the public, as it would be releasing later that year. And sadly, they didn't do a super great job. Pikmin 3, Wii Fit U, and Nintendo Land were really good reveals, but most of the presentation was dedicated to third-party support, which wasn't super interesting. Plus, knowing that all these developers would end up dropping their promised support later on makes this feel pretty fake. There's also this weird part with Reggie trying to turn into a zombie, and it doesn't work very well. It was starting to become clear that the Wii U was going to run into some problems. This was also the last live press conference that Nintendo ever did for E3, as they switched to pre-recorded directs the next year. E3 1996 was the first time North Americans really got a good look at the N64, showing off Super Mario 64, Wave Race 64, and Pilotwings 64. The jump to 3D gaming is probably the biggest technological leap that has ever happened for Nintendo, so the crowds watching the gameplay demo of Mario running around outside Peach's castle were having their minds blown.
This will also be green control, which you can see is quite fun.
While this E3 didn't have a ton of announcements, I can only imagine how exciting it was to see the future of gaming at the time. Nintendo's E3 2011 started strong with the Zelda Symphony Orchestra playing an amazing piece to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Zelda as Miyamoto walked out on stage. Then there was a 3DS segment showing off Super Mario 3D Land, Mario Kart 7, and Luigi's Mansion 2. But the biggest part of the show was the reveal of the Wii U, which was pretty confusing for the audience.
Welcome to the world of Wii U.
The way they showed off the Wii U was really not great, focusing way too much on the gamepad and making people think it was just an add-on for the Wii. It's pretty awesome to get a look at their new home console, but it wasn't as great as it should have been due to poor communication. I might get some heat for putting 2005 this low on the list, since Iwata holding up the revolution is an amazingly iconic moment, but I think people often forget the rest of the show. There's really long and awkward segments on Nintendogs, and this part with the DJ using a DS to make music. This E3 was really just more details on previously announced things, as the Revolution and Twilight Princess were teased the year before. The Game Boy Micro is pretty awesome, and this moment with Iwata will always be incredible, but as a whole this E3 isn't super enjoyable aside from a few high points. After the train wreck that was 2008, Nintendo really had to step it up for their 2009 press conference, and for the most part, they did. Cammy returns again, but acts much more normal and restrained this time, which is great. There are some really strong games from this E3, including New Super Mario Bros. Wii, Super Mario Galaxy 2, Wii Fit Plus, Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, and Metroid Other M. There was also a much better segment showing off Wii Sports Resort. They really shaped up this year and delivered a well-paced show with exciting announcements. "2018 is kind of similar to 2016, where one game was the main focus. But instead of just one game, this Direct did have a couple announcements including a new Mario Party, before switching over to the main event, Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo Switch. An incredible trailer that will go down in video game history revealed that everyone is here, meaning that all the previous Smash Bros. Fighters would be returning in Smash Bros. Ultimate. Then Ridley was announced as a newcomer. This Smash Bros. Moment is really great, but sadly the rest of the Direct suffered because of it. Aside from Super Mario Party, there wasn't much for non-Smash Bros. Fans. But for those of us who were Smash fans, this sure was an E3 to be remembered, and it would be a lot higher in my ranking if it had a little bit more diversity overall. Now we're getting into the really good shows. Pretty much everything from this point on are really great E3s. 2021 is the most recent E3 appearance from Nintendo, and it was a pretty solid one. A new Smash Bros. DLC fighter, Mario Party Superstars, Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, and a new WarioWare game made this a great Direct. But the two biggest highlights were finally getting another look at the sequel to Breath of the Wild with a new trailer, and Metroid Dread, the first new 2D Metroid game in over 19 years. These two announcements really made this E3 feel special, and it was a great return after taking a year off in 2020. Nintendo at E3 2001 had one major goal, to announce the GameCube and make it look as appealing as possible. And they pulled it off, with an awesome console reveal by Miyamoto and some terrific games like Super Smash Bros. Melee, Pikmin, Luigi's Mansion, and Wave Race Blue Storm. There was even a short tease for Mario Kart on the GameCube. This was also the first E3 with Iwata doing a lot of the presenting, which makes me like it even more. They kind of took a risk with some of these announcements, as Pikmin and Luigi's Mansion weren't the franchises we know them as today, instead they were creative new risks for the company. I think this presentation did a great job at showing what makes the GameCube unique, and the crowd reaction to Smash Melee speaks for itself. I'm a little biased towards E3 2019 as it's essentially what made me start my channel in the first place, but I still think this year had a really awesome Direct. It started with a Smash DLC fighter, Hero from Dragon Quest. A new Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games was revealed, as well as some really strong third-party support with stuff like the impossible Switch port of The Witcher 3. I also really loved this little joke segment with Doug Bowser being introduced as the new president of Nintendo of America. Animal Crossing for Switch was finally shown off and looked incredible, getting the title of Animal Crossing New Horizons. Then we got the crazy surprise of another Smash DLC fighter, this time being one of the most highly requested characters in the West, Banjo-Kazooie. And then the Direct ended with one of the best One More Things of all time, the reveal that a sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is now in development. The first half of this Direct wasn't mind-blowing, but ending with an amazing look at Animal Crossing, an insanely hype character reveal with Banjo, and the incredible announcement of Breath of the Wild 2 makes this an E3 for the history books. "2010 brought the reveal of the 3DS, the successor to the DS, making use of glasses-free 3D technology. There were also exciting announcements like Kirby's Epic Yarn, Donkey Kong Country Returns, Mario Sports Mix, a new Golden Sun and Golden Eye, and Kid Icarus Uprising. This was also the big reveal for Skyward Sword, sadly bringing some terrible technical difficulties on stage that brought this year down a bit.
These are some fast spiders.
But luckily the game's official trailer made it look a lot better. There was also this weird part where a whole bunch of chicks attached to 3DSs come out and act as demo units, which is pretty bizarre. Introducing the 3DS was a huge deal, but the reason I love this E3 is because of the long overdue return of both Donkey Kong Country and Kid Icarus, with both games looking amazing. 2017 was the first E3 Direct after the Nintendo Switch's launch, and it delivered on showing a whole bunch of exciting upcoming releases for the system. A new 2D Kirby game and 2D Yoshi game, the confirmation of a new generation of Pokemon for the Switch, Breath of the Wild DLC, and the super hype moment where Metroid Prime 4 was announced. Metroid Samus Returns was also announced after the show, making this a great E3 for Metroid fans. The big final trailer was for Super Mario Odyssey, finally giving us a really good look at the game and all of its creative mechanics. This Direct comes in at a really short duration of only 24 minutes, which is a little too short for my liking. But probably the most heartwarming moment actually came from Ubisoft's press conference, where Miyamoto took to the stage and showed off Mario + Rabbids Kingdom Battle. And we got to see the game's creative director coming to tears seeing his creation be revealed by Miyamoto himself. "2006 was the big reveal of Nintendo's next console, the Revolution, but now it has a new name, the Wii, showing off games like Wii Sports, Excite Truck, Metroid Prime 3, and Super Mario Galaxy. Miyamoto gets an actually good Wii music performance, and Reggie is amazing as always.
Okay, next, the name. First, we want to thank everyone who wrote good things about it the day you heard it. Both of you.
Twilight Princess also showed up and got a release date after years of waiting, and was playable on the Wii without any major technical problems, unlike Skyward Sword. They also announced that the game would be launching on both the GameCube and Nintendo's new console. The DS Lite was shown off as a new, sleeker design compared to the original, alongside some DS games like Star Fox Command and Zelda Phantom Hourglass. This Wii Sports demo on the stage with Miyamoto, Iwata, and Reggie all playing Wii Sports Tennis is just amazing. And one day later after the presentation, Super Smash Bros. Brawl was announced for the Wii. I think this E3 is a big reason why the Wii skyrocketed in popularity so quickly, as it was already building up an impressive lineup of games. At E3 2013, the Wii U had already been out for a while, and early sales numbers weren't looking good. Nintendo really had to prove what made this console great, and they totally did. It started with a new generation of Pokemon for the 3DS with Pokemon X and Y. Then we got Mario Kart 8, Super Mario 3D World, The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker HD, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, Xenoblade Chronicles X, Wii Party U, and it ended with Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS. These are all incredible games, and it really showed the potential of the Wii U console. The only reason this Direct isn't higher is because a lot of these games were already teased in a previous Direct a few months earlier, so they weren't total surprises like they would have been otherwise. But still a fantastic E3 for Nintendo, and it showed why the Wii U is a console worth owning. With the GameCube officially being launched a few months ago at the time, E3 2002 saw a whole bunch of fantastic GameCube games be announced. The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker, Metroid Prime and Metroid Fusion, F-Zero GX, Wario World, Star Fox Adventures, and Animal Crossing. There was also a much better look at Super Mario Sunshine with a full gameplay demo played by Miyamoto. The GameCube has a great library of games, and a lot of them were revealed in this very E3. It's crazy to look back and see so many iconic and legendary games be announced back to back. I mean, they showed off a new 3D Zelda and 3D Mario, the first 3D Metroid adventure alongside a new 2D Metroid, a 3D Wario platformer, F-Zero, Star Fox, and Animal Crossing. That's most of Nintendo's biggest and best franchises all showing up at once. This E3 wasn't a very fancy showcase from an entertainment perspective, but they brought the games to make this one of their best years yet. Most people would probably put this E3 at the very top of the list, and it's easy to see why. This was Reggie's first appearance, and he immediately made an impact.
My name is Reggie. I'm about kicking ass. I'm about taking names. And we're about making games.
Compared to their previous E3, 2004 felt like a whole new company. Reggie was edgy and straight to the point, cutting the bullcrap and not wasting any time. Reggie revealed the DS by holding it up in an iconic E3 moment, and everyone was impressed by the power of the system. Then Iwata teased the next generation and dropped the codename Revolution. There were some great games like Metroid Prime 2, Resident Evil 4, and The Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap. There is kind of a slow part in the middle with some graphs and slideshows, but right when you think it's over, they pulled one of the best One More Things in the history of video games and created one of the most historic video game moments of all time. A lot of people were disappointed with the cartoony visuals of The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, so when a new trailer started showing dark and gritty visuals, the crowd absolutely lost it when Link appeared on his horse. This has got to be one of the most hype crowd reactions of all time, and Miyamoto coming out with a Hylian shield and Master Sword was the perfect cherry on top.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Shigeru Miyamoto.
An incredible E3 for sure, but for me personally, there's still one that I think is just slightly better. Nintendo's E3 2014 Direct is jam-packed full of amazing announcements for the Wii U, and it had some of the funniest moments the company has ever had.
We have Nintendo's biggest stars backstage ready to make some big announcements.
Oh, great! Another Mario game!
Don't love your tone, but actually no new Mario game today.
What? I'm getting bombed? Bring my cart around! I'm out of here!
Hey, looks like I'm the new face of Nintendo. Hey, they promised me you would be here! Come on, Reggie, give us Mother 3!
How about this instead?
Nintendo is not usually self-aware like this, so hiring Robot Chicken to make these amazing skits was a genius idea. This is where we first saw the Amiibo, which ended up being one of my favorite Nintendo products to collect and display. There was also this amazing trailer revealing Mii Fighters for Smash Wii U, where Reggie and Iwata fight, and it's just perfection. It's not just the skits that make this E3 so legendary though. The games announced included Super Mario Maker, Yoshi's Woolly World, Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, Captain Toad, Kirby and the Rainbow Curse, and Splatoon, which was a brand new franchise for the company and one of my personal favorite Nintendo IPs. Then we got a look at the next Legend of Zelda game for the Wii U, an exciting new direction for the series that would end up being one of the greatest games of all time. I still remember watching the trailer for Zelda U constantly when I was younger. It was the most excited I'd ever been for a video game. Then it ended with a new Smash character being announced alongside this gorgeous 2D animation of Link and Pit fighting. The new fighter was Palutena from Kid Icarus, and if that wasn't enough, there was even a last-second tease for the next Star Fox game at the very end of the Direct. I absolutely adore this E3 Direct, and it's one of my favorite presentations Nintendo has ever done. The announcements are great, but it's the way it's all presented that makes it just barely beat out 2004 for me personally. It's just so full of personality and charm, and it highlights everything I love about this company. And that's all of Nintendo's E3 showcases ranked from worst to best. Hopefully I didn't upset too many of you with my rankings. Remember that all of this is just my opinion and it's totally okay to disagree with me. In fact, leave a comment down below sharing which E3 is your favorite. I really enjoyed watching all of these, even though it got slightly awkward and painful at times. It was also really great but really sad to watch Iwata at E3 through the years. He really was the heart and soul of Nintendo and I'll always miss what he brought to the company. And of course, Reggie and Miyamoto will always be Nintendo legends as well. I'm not sure what the future of E3 and Nintendo is, but I'll always love the many different showcases we've gotten over the years. There's something so magical about sitting in front of your TV at the beginning of summer and getting excited for all of Nintendo's announcements. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see ya in the next one.